Good morning, Coach. Or good afternoon, Coach. How are you?
Good, Dan. How are you doing?
Can you hear me?
I can. Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, Coach, just obviously a couple pauses in practice. Just what you've done to kind of address the team on that, and how the team has been functioning through this like kind of start, stop, restart type of practice.
Okay, now you're going to get mad at me because half your question in the beginning kind of broke up. Can you repeat it again?
Yeah, just what you can say about how practice has been with the start and stop, kind of the restart that you've had with a couple practices where the players have sat out. Just what you could say about how the team's kind of gone through that and the environment moving forward.
Well, I think they've handled it well. They basically said certain things, and we dropped the ball on the one thing, and they were right. And we froze practice until we cleaned it up. And the athletic director's already made a statement. And since that point, practice has been running really well. The guys have been active out at practice. They've been doing their part when they're out there. And hopefully we're going to continue to have a lot more practices like that.
And then as far as safety and everything moving forward, the ACC still pushing toward the season. Just what you can say about the climate of college football right now, as we continue to see conferences and schools try to make some decisions here, as other schools are looking to maybe play in the spring.
I can't talk for everyone else. I can only speak for Syracuse. I know that we, with the Thursday test that we had last week, we're at 1,450 tests for our players. Obviously, there was a statement on how many positives we've had since those 1,450 tests. And I feel like the atmosphere here and the safety things that we're trying to get done at Syracuse for our players are really, really good. I think we have the right format. A lot of other schools are having success with their format as well. We just hope that all this stuff continues as students start to come back to campus, and ours are starting to come back, and it's good to see them. And I know all of our students, as far as I know, are going through a 14-day quarantine before they're even allowed to go into their dorms rooms. So we're doing a lot of extreme stuff here at Syracuse to try to keep the learning environment and the student athletes all safe. We really feel that we may be a little biased, but we feel like they may be a little bit safer here on campus than maybe in some of the areas that they go back to, especially if they're going back to a hot area, because the state of New York's not hot right now. But we feel like we're doing a good job. We're going to cross T's and dot I's and hopefully not stub our toe anymore, and hopefully continue to work towards the start of the ACC season.
Next,
Thank you, Coach. Stay safe.
Thanks, Dan.
Next, we'll go to Andrea Adelson from ESPN.com. Go ahead, Andrea.
Hey, Dino, as a follow-up to that, what is your concern level about the students on campus perhaps not following the protocols as stringently as your players are being asked to? We saw pictures over the weekend on other campuses, large gatherings, people not wearing masks, and I know that's been a concern for a lot of folks about whether that's going to impact the season.
That's going to be the real key. I mean, I don't need to. You guys can ask anybody that question. I really feel during the daytime that even that you look at young people, I think they do a great job. I think they do a fantastic job in the state of New York. But what they do at night, reflects what's going to happen to them during the day. And I would love to be with them where I could see exactly what they were doing at night, but that's not the American way, and I don't think I could survive that. I can't stay up that many hours. I go to bed early at 9:30. So that is going to be the key. Not what I really believe that everybody's going to be good during the day, but what are they going to be doing during the night, and that's going to decide whether we play or not. Now, on that note, I don't want to sound weird. You haven't gotten any strange calls from me lately, right? No, you guys listen. Her AA is the first in my phone. So anytime that I don't lock my phone out and I start walking, she gets these calls and I'm like, okay, I'm telling you right now, I'm not trying to haunt you. I'm not trying to chase you down. Listen, you're just first in my phone and I forget to lock my phone. So, but she understands. So you guys make sure you guys put that in the right light.
Well, it's a blessing and a curse to have the first letter in the alphabet twice in your name.
AA is hard to beat.
Thanks, Dino.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Nico from CNY Central. Nico, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, how are you today?
Hey, Nico.
Kind of a broad question here, but, looking at the scope of everything, whether it's the entire pandemic, the last few months, or even the measures that have to be taken in college football, what can your players, and even you yourself, what can you guys learn about yourselves during this time and better yourselves about in the way that we've had to approach everything during this pandemic?
Nico, that is a fantastic question. I think that you've learned a lot about a lot of individuals, including myself. This thing really started in March, and we haven't even got to kick off yet in September. And you're learning a lot. I'm learning a lot about myself. I'm learning a lot about my team. You're getting to see people under stress levels, me included, that you've never seen in 34 years of coaching. I've never seen before. I was listening to Dabo speak the other day on ESPN, and he was talking about how many years he had been in coaching. And I was thinking, he hasn't been in coaching that many years, but he added his college playing years. So since he did that, that means I'm allowed to do that. So that means I've got 41 years of collegiate experience. 41 years. 1979 was my freshman year. I think the math is right. I got to ask Stephen Bailey on that one. I think the math is right. Okay, thank you, sir, Stephen. So there's never been anything like this. And it's almost like you're seeing players that are, you see some players like they're ready to go. You see some players like I have some concerns. You see, and it's almost like they're deciding whether they're enlisting into the Army or not, and whether they do or whether they don't, whether they want to fight for the country or not. And it's not fair. Watch this. It's not fair to compare that, because there's nothing like enlisting in your Army to serve in the armed forces. So there's nothing like that to compare. But it's the closest thing to it with the COVID-19. And even though the numbers are low, when someone says, can you tell me 100% this is not going to happen? The answer is, I'm not sure I can tell you 100% anything's going to happen besides one or two things that's kind of biblical. So, outside of that, there's not that, and not having the answers when people ask you questions is the most frustrating thing. The word I can't stand is I don't know. And it seems like I've said it more than 2020 than I've ever said it in my life. And that is frustrating for someone that's wired the way I'm wired. So I hope that answered your question.
It did. I appreciate you opening up. Thank you so much, Coach.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Mark Larson from Spectrum News. Mark?
Hey, Coach, how are you?
Hey, Mark, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. So you've talked before about everybody has the option of opting out, right? Players have the option, assistant coach has the option of opting out. I wondered if you have ever considered that option for yourself, and tell me why.
Tell me the last part, because about myself, and then you said something I couldn't hear it.
And just tell me why. Have you thought about opting out ever?
It's funny how the players can opt out, assistant coaches can opt out, but I'm not sure I ever saw anything where the head coach could opt out. No, not at all. I'm a military kid. I'm a military brat. I grew up on military bases, went to school with little kids whose dads were MIA and POWs. Okay. I'm doing exactly what I love. I love what I'm doing. I wouldn't leave these young men behind and do it by themselves, or these assistant coaches or this institution, and whatever happens. And I'm at one of those ages where something bad could happen. It's not my will, it's his will, and whatever he wants to do can be done. But going back to my analogy of a movie, Top Gun, I will not leave my wingman. Okay, I will be right there for these people all the way down the stretch.
I had one follow-up to an earlier question about practices and the missed practices, 4 missed practices. Now, I'm under the impression that you guys have this thing mapped out preseason to the minute, every practice up to the opening game. So how much does missing 4 practices this early set you back, and how do you catch up?
It does set you back. But the one thing that when we first got together, when the team came back June 8th, we wasn't even allowed to get together as a staff because of grouping in pods, because we were underneath the same grouping in pods as the players, which is one of the most efficient ways to do it. But the big thing is this. I told the staff, I said, there's never been a year like this. So forget about those old playbooks. Forget about the old practice schedules. I said, this is straight Heartbreak Ridge. If you do not adjust and improvise, you are going to get left behind in 2020. And if everybody on this screen is not shaking their heads, it's got to be, your work has got to be different than it's ever been before. Talking to people has to be different than it's ever been before. And even people sharing their opinions is different than it's ever been before. And you have to be flexible to survive this pandemic, to survive this year. But what I tell the young men and what I tell the staff, you need to be flexible, but you need to also be rooted, because if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for everything.
Yeah, thank you. Yep, nice seeing you. Yep.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Stephen Bailey from Syracuse.com. Stephen, go ahead.
You said that some of your players still have concerns and other ones don't. I'm kind of curious, have you polled the team or kind of taken a temperature? Do you have a feel for what percentage of those guys still have concerns? And then, like, are those concerns health related? Are they eligibility related? Everyone's got a different situation, but what's your kind of read of the roster in that regard?
To answer your question, yes, I've taken a poll. That's 1A. 1B is the poll is always changing, which is another reason why I'm always taking a poll. To go to what I believe your second question is, I think you're right. I think some is over COVID-19, some is uncertainty about what their options are, because options haven't come down from above us, from the NC2A or what's really the ACC has been good. We're really good on that, but from the NC2A, what their options are. And we always talk to these guys about knowledge is power, and gain the most knowledge you can and make the most sensible decision that you can make with some common sense and input from people that really that really care about you, that really know you. But when you don't, again, the IDK of things is really frustrating when you're trying to make an educated decision and you don't have all the information you need, so to speak. Halfway answered or answered it?
Answered it. I'm going to assume you're not going to tell me what the current number of concerned players is, so I'm not going to use my second question on that.
Right? Stephen, well, let me say this to you. So it won't even have to be your second question. You can ask another one. The numbers fluctuate. So the number that I give you may not be accurate tomorrow or as accurate as it'd be 5 days from now. It actually fluctuates.
Sure, and I get that. And concern doesn't mean not playing in a season. It might not even mean not practicing. I fully understand that. Let me ask you this. It seems to me that the way this potentially comes undone on a team is kind of a domino effect, right? If a handful of certain guys say, I'm not comfortable playing, that changes the picture of a season for everyone kind of left in the room. Do you kind of get that vibe? And how important is it for you to, I guess, know where the most, I don't want to say it in a bad way, but most valuable, the most important players to your season are in regard to their willingness to play?
I think you need to be able to understand who has what concerns and give them the information they need to make the decision that's best for them. And I mean, that's all we're allowed to do, and that's all I would ever do anyway. It's no different than having a family member. You're going to tell them the pros, you're going to tell them the cons. And if it's your child and if they're old enough, you're going to allow them to make the decision. If they're not, then a good mom and dad's going to make the decision for them until they get old enough to make their own decisions. But I think the biggest thing is I think there's going to 8/21 is supposed to be a big day with the NC2A, where they're supposed to really come down with some concrete stuff. And I think that's going to be one of the dates coming up in the future that's going to be really important for a lot of people.
Thanks, Dino. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Matt Fortuna from The Athletic. Matt, go ahead.
Hey, Dino. I want to first circle back to the first question. You mentioned you guys dropped the ball on one thing and you fixed it. I assume you meant communication with the players or with us, but I just wanted to clarify that. And then my actual question is,
Let me answer that one first, okay?
Sure.
So the big thing was we had gone from, we were testing every 2 weeks, and the players asked, we had a meeting, not in our meeting room because we wanted to have social distancing, and we had a meeting in our very spacious indoor with everybody separated. And I had the microphone, and they asked me a question that I didn't have the technical answer to. I asked a personnel in a person that works for me, and they answered without the microphone. And with the air conditioners running and the giant fans and stuff, I looked at him. I really didn't hear the answer, but I thought I heard the answer, but I really didn't hear the answer. Then we came back, and he did not. He checked with somebody, and they said, "No, we can't do that." And it never got back to me that we couldn't do that. And technically, and I'm not throwing anybody this, I actually forgot too, because we were on a strict 2-week boom, boom, boom. And what they asked us to do is go to 1 week. So then it went to 1 week, and when the date hit, we didn't test. And and they called us on it, and rightfully so. Okay, the facts are the facts. Said yes, we could do it, and yes, we can do it. We didn't do it. We had gone, I want to say 6 weeks without a positive. So we had gone for a long period of time, and we were in camp mode. So they went back and they called us on it. They were right. We stopped practice. And until we got everybody tested clean, we weren't going to start practice again, because that's what we agreed to. Now, there's already been a release, but that's basically what happened.
Gotcha. Thanks for clarifying that. And then I just want to ask, the Liberty situation, we've seen your athletic director put out a public statement. We've seen Liberty put out a public statement in response to that. Just what's your overall comfort level as a head football coach with taking your guys to play that team, given the uncertainty that your roster seems to have with what's going on there and what they have said they're doing to test?
The thing that I have complete faith is in our athletic director. Okay, John Wildhack is not messing around. Our chancellor, Kent Severud, is not messing around. I mean, we've already had students that have actually been sent home because they broke their quarantine. This is not the place to come and joke around with this. We had this pandemic first, the way I look at it. I was sitting at my house for numerous months and daily watching the death rate. And I saw what happened in the state, and it was bad. And it was early, and we didn't have the knowledge that a lot of other states have now. But I also know where we're at as a state right now. And to come from that huge number to what's operating right now gives everyone else hope that if you do it right, you can get this thing back under control. And we feel really comfortable in the state of New York. I know I do, in walking around with my mask on and dropping dime on anyone that doesn't have their mask on. Now, I'm not saying that if I'm not on a walk with my daughter who's in my pod, that I have my mask on when I'm walking, but I can tell you this, no one's walking past me or near me that I don't know that doesn't have a mask on. I will cross the street. My daughter will cross the street like they have a dog with them or something. You're not going to get close to me if you don't have a mask. But I really think that's been the attitude of everybody in the state of New York. So it's really important that we follow the rules, wash our hands, social distance. And if we're going to do those things, we've got a chance. If we're not going to do those things, it's not going to be good for us. Matt, did I come close to answering your question? He's going to say no. Go ahead, Matt. Tell me no. I've had a lot of no's this week. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the yes.
Next, we'll go to Darius Joshua from News Channel 9. Darius, go ahead.
Darius, I can't hear you.
Mike didn't unmute me. Anyway, awesome. Thanks again for meeting with us, Dino. Kind of following up with that, you imagine that all the teams in the ACC will follow the same protocols when the season actually begins. And obviously,
Darius, start over. You went fast and you went low, and I couldn't hear you.
You imagine that all the ACC teams will follow the same protocol when the season begins in September, and you would hope that Liberty obviously does as well. But obviously, the players have voiced their concerns about what's happening elsewhere. They've all been saying, we know what's happening here, we just don't know what's happening there. As a coach heading into a game week or heading into the season overall, do you have a way to kind of verify what's happening there? And then if you don't, should you as a team, as should every team in the conference, have a way to verify so that they know for that game everybody will be safe when they step on the field?
I don't want to overstep my bounds. This is how I'll answer this. I really believe by the start of the season that everybody on this Zoom call is going to see transparency, and they're going to be really satisfied in the ACC and with anyone that the ACC plays, that their testing and the way we're going about testing, that people are going to be confident enough to enter that game and play that contest.
And with that as well, as you mentioned, August 21st, now that new date for the NCAA to kind of, I guess, announce the eligibility sort of situations for athletes, things like that. Do you have a set date for yourself in terms when you want players to tell you, or is it at any point in the season if they feel uncomfortable is there a timeline that you've kind of discussed with the team?
Again, it's not me. I really believe that date should come from the NC2A. I could give a date, and then the NC2A could come behind me and give another date, and my date's no good. So, we're waiting for direction for them to say something, and if they're not going to say it, then the ACC needs to come down with a mandate to tell us when to say it. And if the ACC is not going to say it, then with those two not saying anything, that gives me the opportunity to set a date.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we'll go to Adam Hillman from the Daily Orange. Adam, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. How's it going?
Hey.
So my question is more about recruiting. So, how have you guys adjusted?
You said recruiting?
Yeah. So how have you guys adjusted to virtual recruiting, and how long, do you imagine virtual recruiting lasting?
Well, I think the NC2A just extended the date again to keeping people off campus and keeping us closed. Now, I am not a big Zoom fan. Okay. But it's been interesting. It's been interesting Zooming with recruits and in all these Zooms that we've had to do since March. And I don't like it as well as being face-to-face with someone, but I think it's a lot better than just having a phone up to your ear and not being able to see their face. So I'm somewhere in between in it. I thought that we've had a fantastic Zoom season as far as recruiting goes. And it's interesting that this may be one of our best recruiting periods ever, and it was done on Zoom. So I'm one of those guys that like to add up the results and look at it and analyze it. And even though initially I didn't like that flavor of ice cream, I would have to say that I would probably buy it now because the results were outstanding compared to some previous years. And another thing is I got a lot of opportunities to meet a lot of family members and really see how those young men interact with their moms and dads right next to them. And that's invaluable to see the home atmosphere, to get a little bit of a jump start on what type of student athlete that you're going to get coming to Syracuse University.
How do you help guys, get a feel of the campus and get a feel of the program?
Okay, you went low on me again. Say it again.
How do you help guys, get a feel of the program and get a feel of the campus, even though they can't, step foot on campus?
Okay. They have calls with me where they're allowed to ask numerous questions. I give them information. Sometimes they say, Coach, I've never been through this before. None of my kids have ever been recruited. What's some questions? I love it when parents do this. What's some questions I should be asking other coaches? And boom, 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 boom. And I give them the questions to ask. Or even some of them are tough for me to answer. But I said, these are the questions you need to ask if you really want to know where you are in recruiting with these institutions. And I love it when they use those type of, when they open themselves up and they trust me enough to say something like that. I think something that's been fantastic for Syracuse University is the virtual tours. And we're showing them clips of all the stadium, the health center, the things that we do, our buildings, and just showing them around town. And I think the kids have loved it. Obviously a lot of that stuff was done in March and the summer and all that kind of stuff. I'm always telling them it does snow here. We go to school in the snow. We don't play in it. So just understand that the snow does come down here. We're one of 2 schools with a dome, as far as I know, and the only Power 5 school with a dome. But they need to understand that this is a beautiful place for most of the times that they're here. For college student athletes that play football, a lot of their off time is in the summer here by themselves, and between the hunting and the fishing and a bunch of the waterfalls that I got an opportunity to see during this pandemic that I never had a chance to see in 5 years. It's a beautiful place, and I've always thought that. So the virtual tours, the Zoom calls with the parents, being able to tie all that in and then have them ask a question, I would really like to know more about this, taking notes on it and making sure they get the information that they need, I think has really helped our recruiting efforts.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Adam.
Next, we'll go to Nate Mink from Syracuse.com. Nate.
Dino, I wanted to follow up on the August 21st date that's been referenced a couple times. Do you see that date as a potential tipping point for a lot of your guys that are on the fence still? Like, do you think your roster is going to look drastically different next Monday, as it does this Monday?
I know this. It's going to give young men enough information to move somewhere, and I think that's important. The thing that bugs me the most is to see someone at their age indecisive, to see someone, half and half. We don't operate like that on football. We're normally all in or we're all out. And now we're all in, we're all out, and we're in the middle. And we really don't like that. That gray area we really don't like. But I think that's a date where a lot of the guys are going to be able to come out of that area. And from a mental health standpoint, I think it's going to be really good for them one way or another.
I'm gonna ask for your patience a little bit here as I formulate my second question. You coach exceptional athletes that are gifted with certain abilities that not everyone can do, and we're dealing with a novel virus that we just don't know a lot about right now in terms of potential long-term risks. I guess, what kind of guidance or how are you advising your players that are deciding whether or not they want to be comfortable taking on that unknown when, the potential for their maximum capacity athletically could be compromised if they come in contact with this thing, and it becomes career ending, not in the sense of a knee injury or a spinal or a neck injury, but if a 4.3 turns into a 4.5 40, or a lineman can only do, his lung capacity only can equip him to run 60 plays as opposed to 85 plays.
I was very patient with that one, Nate. I love you, brother, but that thing was long. This is where I'll go with that, is that this is the time where you really need to talk to your coach, okay? Talk to the friends, your peers that you respect, that has your best interests at heart, and your parents, okay? And I think that between all those groups, you're going to have a meter that's going to fall one way or another. And it all depends on what you consider, risk. My thing is, I love football, okay? And it's not me playing. It's not me being the head. It has nothing to do with it, okay? The day that you come down here, Nate, and you write that giant article that I'm not going to be here anymore, I'm going to go down to the local high school, and I'm going to volunteer as the assistant O-line coach. And I'm going to be the assistant O-line coach at some high school, and I'm going to have a great time. I love what I'm doing. And so to me, that's worth whatever baby risk that is. It's worth it to me. This is what I love doing. They have to weigh that thing in their heart. They're not wrong in whatever they decide, and determine what's best and what they want to do. This is different. This is like you going to college and I don't want to compare it to that. I'm going to stop right there. It's just different. So it's hard to act the way you've already acted. You've always acted before 2020. I just think this is a totally different year. And if you look around the country, everything's been different in 2020.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Coach, we got time for one more question, and it'll be from Anthony from the Daily Orange. Go ahead, Anthony.
Thanks for unmuting me, Mike. Hey, Dino, hope you're doing well. You kind of touched on it. You kind of touched on it a little bit in your last answer, but one of the main reasons cited as why the Big Ten and the Pac-12 ultimately canceled their season was the concern over the long-term health risks. What kind of conversations have you had, or have had health people within SU had with the players directly about the myocarditis issue that has popped up amongst student athletes?
We've had direct conversations about it, because it's anything that they have as a concern in making their decision. It's the responsibility of the parents or the university or myself to make sure that we can get them the most knowledge, and I mean high quality knowledge. I talk to my players all the time. I say, all coaches aren't the same. All players aren't the same. All teachers aren't the same. All doctors aren't the same. Okay. Somebody got a C and still got doctor in front of their name, and somebody got an A. And what we want to do is get them with the highest rated specialists that we can get in certain categories and have them ask questions where we're not even on the phone. I mean, it's like you get your mom, you get your dad. We'll put a representative from the university on there, not me. I don't. And you go ask your questions and you acquire your knowledge. And then because you acquired all this knowledge, you're going to be able to make an educated, grown decision. And I think that's the most important thing. And I think it's also the best thing to ease their mind, because the last thing you want to do is have people out there playing and they're really fearful of what they're doing based off something they can't see. I can't hear you, but hopefully you're not saying bad things about me.
There. Thanks.
Okay. Anthony, good. That was your answer? Good enough?
Yeah, that was good.
Okay.
All right, Coach. Appreciate your time this afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, guys. You guys have a good day.